Briterion Bollection is back.
Yep.
Bitches.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, sorry. I just had to. I'm getting too used to it.
I'm
Okay.
not.
Alright, fine. That is that is my wife, Aileen.
Hello.
I'm your host, Kevin. And we're doing another film for Women's History Month. This has another female director.
Yes, we're just really down to the wire with all these, with this whole month edition. So hopefully we can finish all the ones that we want to talk about by the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly. If you're watching this, my wife is off camera lying down, but she's here. So this film we're doing today is it's the second film in my women-directed Beatles trilogy for this month so far. The first one I did a few days ago with Chris. We talked about Nowhere Boy. And tonight I'm talking with my wife about the 2001 film called I Am Sam, starring Sean Penn, Dakota Fanning, Michelle Pfeiffer. So this movie, yeah, came out in 2001, and I actually didn't see it when it came out. I remember hearing about it. I remember seeing commercials, and I think I saw that it did get some nominations, especially Sean Penn. But I heard it kind of got like mixed to bad reviews, so I kind of like wasn't in a rush to see it. Okay.
Okay, and now our cat is getting in the way.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, there's Aileen.
Hello.
So yeah, it didn't really get that good reviews, so I wasn't really in a rush to see it, even though I guess it looked kind of interesting. People were making a big deal out of Sean Penn playing this disabled character, basically. So I didn't see it at the time, but then I remember I took a intro to cinema class in 2004 at Grossmont College, and I had a professor named Dr. Imami, and he was a pretty smart guy. And
I've heard interesting stories about him. So wherever Dr. Imami is now, so
yeah,
hi.
shout to Dr. Imami for helping me develop my passion for cinema. He was like really conservative, older Persian man, so you can imagine kind of his vibe. But he was a cool dude, and he taught the class how we only get like 50% of a movie when we first see it, like, and really I think you that's the maximum you get when you first see it. Like, usually you probably get even less than that when you first see it.
I think it depends on how intrigued and how drawn and how much you can catch of it, really.
Yeah, I guess so. And I feel like when you see a movie, like when you rewatch it, you only get like 10% each time after when you rewatch it. Like, that's just my own little theory. So yeah, I watched this movie in the class, and while the movie's on, I start hearing all these Beatles songs, and I end up really liking the movie. I was a pretty big Beatles fan at that point, and I felt like the movie was kind of underrated. Like, I hadn't been hearing a lot of praise for it in the aftermath of its release. I think Sean Penn gives a great performance, even though he probably shouldn't have been allowed to do it. I mean, at this point, he probably wouldn't be able to do this today. I love Dakota and Michelle Pfeiffer, and it has a great cast, so I think it's a pretty cool movie. And then I think like a few years ago, I asked my wife if you've seen this movie, and you said you hadn't, but I thought you might like it because I know you like the movie The Other Sister, the Gary Marshall movie, and I feel like
Yeah, if no one has watched it, it stars Juliette Lewis and Giovanni Ribisi, and they also both play intellectually challenged people. I don't want to spoil it too much, but if you ever have the chance to watch it, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. It's probably my favorite Gary Marshall movie, honestly.
Even I feel like it's still, in the sense, like it's pretty conservative because Diane Keaton plays Juliette Lewis's mom in it, and she's just all around like very controlling. Very, she tries to keep up, the appearances, cares about her reputation. So you can all imagine how it's like, having an intellectually challenged daughter.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but it's a pretty cool movie. If you have a chance to see it, check it out. And you like I Am Sam so much that you showed it to your aunt, who you're very close with, right?
Yes, I actually briefly mentioned her last time when we talked about Bend Like Beckham, because I mentioned that she actually saw me watching the movie, and and part of the bonus features on the DVD is that they show a recipe for aloo gobi. So that's why I mentioned her there, and now we're mentioning her again because after I watched this movie, I really liked it. So I told her, "You might like this movie. It seems like a story that you would like." And yeah, so when she finished watching it, she told me it's actually a very beautiful story, and she thought, like, it's, I really like how they ultimately both overcame that separation, and the co-defending was really cute as a kid. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of a hit with the family, so surprisingly.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna go to the cliche Wikipedia definition. Okay, is that okay?
absolutely, that is
I
mandatory.
usually do it with you. I always forget to do it with Chris for whatever reason.
Why is that?
I don't know. I guess he distracts me. He's all over the place. That's why.
Well, knowing that guy, I'm not surprised at all. I,
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like I'm all over the place, but he's a different story.
yeah. He's even more all over the place. So Wikipedia describes this as follows: in 1993, Sam Dawson, a Starbucks barista with an intellectual disability, becomes the single father of Lucy Diamond Dawson, named after the Beatles song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, following her abandonment by her mother, a homeless woman with whom Sam had sex.
Well, and not to mention, she actually lived with him while she was pregnant, but once she gave birth, she ran off.
Yeah, she dipped. Sam is a well-adjusted Sam is well adjusted and has a supportive group of friends with disabilities, as well as a kind, agoraphobic neighbor, Annie, who takes care of Lucy when Sam cannot. Nearly 7 years later, in 2001, Sam provides a loving place for precocious Lucy, though she soon surpasses his mental capacity and ability. Other children bully her for having an intellectually disabled father, and she becomes too embarrassed to accept that she is more intelligent than he is. So the movie starts, and I like the nondescript title sequence, like the all lowercase. I like how unpretentious that is, even though some people might think it is pretentious because it's so unpretentious. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's more of like how it's trying to make him seem that, like, it's
Like
kind of
simplicity.
yeah, not just a simplicity, even things that happen in the movie and how they make him seem like he's kind of like inferior to most other people. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I think the all lower cases is kind of a reference to that.
Like I see what you're saying.
I
Yeah,
mean, not that he
not that
means
he is,
any.
but just the
Yeah,
perception of it.
exactly, and just how a lot of people perceive him. Not that he is valued any less than any other person.
Right. And probably that ties in with just the simplicity of the title too. I
Yeah.
Am Sam, obviously like a Dr. Seuss reference, which I thought was kind of weird because you don't really see or hear much other references to Dr. Seuss other than that. I mean,
Hmm.
I see he has some books, some Dr. Seuss books, and some of the scenes like in his house or whatever.
Hmm.
But other than that, it's kind of interesting that they chose that title because I don't feel like it has that much of a connection. Other than I guess just simplicity, you know what I'm saying? Um, and we see him organizing like the sugars and the cups at Starbucks where he works, and
Hmm.
his boss tells him like, "Oh, it's time to go," and he's like, "Okay," and so he's like, "All right, I
So
gotta
he
go."
runs out of
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and we see like the colorful LA life around, and then he goes to the hospital, and the nurse or whatever midwife asks him like, "Are you the one responsible for this?"
Yeah, I think she's not the midwife. She was the nurse.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, I guess," you know. And the baby's born, and he holds her and looks at her, and he names her Lucy because of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. So he's like Lucy Diamond Dawson.
Yeah, not to mention that, the mom gives birth to her and they're handing her, to hold her, and she just straight up rejects her, which
Right?
to me, that was absolutely sad to see.
Yeah, really sad. And then we hear Lucy and the Diamond song, the version by Black Crows that they did
Yeah.
for this. Did you like that?
I thought it was okay. I still like the original, but I mean, I don't know. I think I was always kind of when it came to Black Crows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of a one-hit wonder, I think. Actually, my sister Denise really liked them back in the day. Believe it or not.
Yeah, which she was on a random episode.
Yeah, she was on our Brett Cetera episode. If you want
Yeah.
to peep that, where we talk about ditching school in the '90s. So yeah, so then the mom, Lucy's mom, gets on the bus and just bounces like she leaves his ass with the
Well,
baby.
more like she just ran down the street and you just never see or hear from her again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he, we see him like feeding her on the bus, like he has to take the bus because he can't drive. So it's kind of a cute little scene, and then he tries to pin her cloth diaper, and he uses his John Lennon pin, but then
Well, he uses a John Lennon pin and he uses a Hertz rental pin
yeah, but then it falls off, so he goes to Target and
to buy diapers.
yeah, to buy diapers,
But then
and
she starts crying uncontrollably at Target.
yeah. And what's funny is that I used to work at Target, and I used to hear babies crying uncontrollably there like every day.
So I'm sure that it reminded you of that.
Yeah, and I'm glad I don't work there anymore. But it's funny seeing Target there with like this blue filter because you don't see, Target is always red. You know what I'm saying? You feel like you're in like the seventh layer of hell because it's all red. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like seeing it with this like blue filter is kind of interesting because it doesn't look like Target at all. And so she's crying like hell, and then he gets a call from his neighbor, played by Dan Weist. Annie, yeah. The She can hear the baby crying all the way from her apartment. So she's like, "What the hell are you
Yeah,
doing?"
she lives at the apartment right across from his, and she can still hear it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So then she comes over, and she kind of starts, carrying her, and she mentions how she always thought that Lucy in the Sky was a reference to LSD, but John genuinely wrote it because his son Julian came with a drawing that he did.
Based on his friend.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, that's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds," or whatever. And so he did a song out of that. But then everyone's like, "Oh, dude, LSD, bro, I love it, I love that." And John's like, "No, I really just did it because of the drawing."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Sure, bro." So she tells him like, "Oh, babies have to eat every 2 hours."
Every 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, but it's like he can't really tell time. So she does something smart, and she's like, "Okay, well, like leave the TV on Nickelodeon, and so every time you see this show come on, then you have to feed her or whatever."
And
like,
then when this other show comes on, then you have to feed her again and
yeah,
so forth.
yeah, exactly. So that
Yeah.
was smart of her to set him up with that. And then we see his homies come over, and they're all special needs like him. We see Doug Hutchison there. He's part of that crew, the infamous Doug Hutchison.
Yeah. Actually, we just watched that documentary on Courtney Stodden on how she was a child bride, so that gets very weird, to say the least.
It's weird to look back at some of his movies.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was in Green Mile, and I remember first seeing him in X-Files, actually. Like, I was a huge X-Files guy when I was a kid, it's like I was a kid, so I was watching X-Men by day and then X-Files at night. So like I was really into that, and I remember seeing him on there, and he was so fucking creepy on that show. He was like some weird lizard man, like he could like slip through like tight spaces. He could like slip through bars, and I was like, "Geez, this guy's fucking creepy."
Yeah, so there was already some foreshadowing.
Yeah, that foreshadowed his future real life creepiness. But in the movie, he's like one of Sam's homies, and he's like a movie savant. Like, he reminds me a lot of me, actually.
But in an even more intense way,
Yeah,
I would say so.
he goes off on tangents like that. And then you hear Two of Us by Amy Mann. Nice little cover.
Yeah.
I guess Amy Mann and her husband, right? Sean's brother.
Who? Michael.
Yeah, Michael Penn. Yeah. So yeah, I love Amy Mann's voice. So it's cool to hear her cover the Beatles. And
Yeah.
we see Sean, I mean not Sean, but Sam at work again, and he has Lucy and the baby Bjorn. He's like running around at Starbucks.
Yeah, which I'm actually surprised they let him take her to work.
Yeah.
I mean,
it seemed like his boss was chill about it. I mean, it seemed like he seemed like sympathetic to him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
compared to most people
I
in
mean,
the movie.
I think it was more partial to him.
Yeah.
Just because we all know why.
Yeah, exactly. And the baby's really cute that we see him on the baby Bjorn with him.
Of course.
And then we cut to and we see him on the swing
with toddler Lucy, who is actually played by Elle Fanning at the stage.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then she's asking him all these questions like, "Why is the sky blue?" And he's like, "Oh, because like the ocean painted like."
Yeah, or like, why is mustard yellow?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like we see a montage of her growing up as she's like asking him these questions, and he's like coming up with his random answers to them, But it's funny because this part of the movie kind of reminds me of the Mexican movie Instructions Not Included, the Eugenio Derbez movie. Like when you see him, like her growing up in the movie with him, like in all the little, every age when they're doing something, and even like her family, her sisters or whatever, her cousins played her when she was like younger in each scene too, right?
Because the little girl is actually played by Loreto Peralta, if you're not familiar with her. She's been in a few other things. But as you see this in the segments of where she's growing up, in real life, some of these are her cousins.
Yeah. So that's a really cool movie. We'll probably talk about it sometime. If you haven't seen that, try to check out Instructions Not Included. It's a cool, funny movie.
Yeah, very sad at the end, though.
Yeah, sad, but cool and funny. And then we catch up to her when she's almost 7, and she asks him if her mom will ever come back.
Which his response was...
Yeah, what does he say? I don't think he says anything, right?
Oh, no, he does.
Oh, what does he say?
Yeah. I thought he said the whole thing about like how Paul McCartney lost his mom when he was really young.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's what he says. He says like Paul McCartney lost his mother when he was little, and John Lennon lost his mother when he was little.
Well, John Lennon was
a
little
he wasn't
older.
that. Yeah, he wasn't that young.
But I mean, I guess that those are it's still a young age, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what's interesting because like I said, me and Chris talked about Nowhere Boy, and you can hear about all that if you watch that movie and then listen to our podcast breaking it down. So it's nice that this movie references that, that story. And, she can already tell that he's different, like he's not like other daddies, and he likes eating at IHOP.
Well, that's like a tradition that they have to eat at IHOP every Wednesday.
Yeah, it's like me with my niece. We like to go to Denny's every time.
Every time we hang out with her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. Like, last time we went to IHOP just to try something different, and it was like they were doing a Sonic promotion or whatever.
Yeah, we only really went for the whole Sonic thing.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was shite.
Yeah, well, it was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't very good service. Food wasn't that great.
They were really understaffed, by the way.
Yeah, it was like one chick walking around the whole place. It wasn't very good. And so every time
Mm-hmm.
after that, we've just gone back to Denny's. That's why people don't like to take chances on different things because they get burned. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, don't
Mm-hmm.
don't change. Then we see her. He takes her to Payless.
With his group of friends.
Yeah, with his homies. And I remember my dad would take me to Payless because he was pretty cheap.
I think I got taken there once, and I think that it was kind of like the first and last time.
I got taken there a lot by my dad, and it was just embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? I would come back with some shoes, and look, now that I look back, it's like, who cares? Like, shoes are shoes. Nowadays I'll buy any random ass shoes as long as they look good. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't care.
but when you're a kid, you're aware of that
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. I would come back with Payless shoes, and all my friends would be like, "Oh, what the hell's that?" Like, "Oh, Payless shoes. It's lame," or whatever. It's like, "Thanks, Dad. Thanks for taking me to Payless." And the guy who works there, who's the clerk, he's the guy who plays Data on Star Trek. I don't even know his name, but he's
I never learned his name either, but I know who you're talking
yeah.
about.
But we actually did. I saw him like walking around in San Diego one time during Comic
During
Con.
Comic
Yeah,
Con, yeah, which is that's not
yeah.
awesome.
So we were just walking in the street, and I see him. I was like, "Oh, that's the guy who plays fucking Data in Star Trek, the Next Generation." And I guess he was in I Am Sam. I didn't think of that. I guess I probably would have been more excited if I remember that he's from I Am Sam, honestly. And so he can't afford the shoes, and he's paying all cash. He's like scrounging up change, and then his buddies are like, "Oh, I'll help you," and they
Yeah,
all
they're all
like,
tripping.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
kind of cute. And he's like, "Oh, like, can we have a balloon with everything?" And he's the Data guy. He's like, "Yeah." Like, he like shakes his head like, "Sure." And then
Yeah.
we cut to, and they're like walking across the street with the
Yeah,
balloons.
you can see that it's downtown LA.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And so we hear Across the Universe, played by Rufus Wainwright, which I think he does a good version, actually.
I like his version too.
Yeah. And then at the crosswalk, so it kind of looks like Abbey Road. They're trying to make it look like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's another little Beatles reference. And then like the shot of them playing, like Sam and her playing, is like kind of Wong Kar Wai-ish, like the step printing that he does. It's a cool little effect. And then so yeah, he reads her Green Eggs and Ham. So that's a little Dr. Seuss
Yeah.
reference it. And he would keep reading it, but then she tells him to stop because she has to start school tomorrow. Like that's kind of like a hint of her maturity, I guess, in comparison to his, is that he wants to keep going, and she's the one who has to tell him like, "Oh, hey, we should stop because I have school tomorrow." You know what I'm saying? Like that's like a foreshadowing that she's already like
Overpassing him in
yeah,
intellectual,
yeah,
in her intellectual capacity.
yeah, exactly. So that's like not a good sign, I guess. And then we see her giving a presentation to the class about the cycle of the butterfly, and he's there to see it. Sam is there, and then this kid Connor in his class, which is funny because that's Chris's son. Chris's son's name is Connor. So,
Yeah, but I bet this kid spells it with a C and
yeah,
not with a K.
yeah. Whereas Chris wants everything with a K because yeah, he wants to rep his German heritage, I guess.
Whatever that means.
So the kid, and then we see the kid Connor in his class doing a presentation, and then his like a-hole businessman dad is there.
Yeah, and you can see that the dad's overall behavior and personality really rub off on Connor.
Yeah, like he's getting these a-hole-ish ways from him. And so that Connor kid comes over to their house for some reason. I guess she likes him. I think she thinks she's cool. Like she thinks he's cool or whatever. But like really, the audience is looking at him like, why is this asshole kid there? You know what I'm saying? Like it made no sense. And so he's calling him
The R word.
Yeah, yeah,
like being very ableist.
Yeah, he's telling her these bad names about her dad, and yeah, the kid's a dick, honestly. Right? You hate him, don't you?
Yeah, he's definitely not someone I would want as my own kid.
Yeah. And then we see Sam at the mall food court, and he's just like minding his own business. But then this Asian chick shows him some stupid newspaper shit or whatever, and he's like, What's that?" or whatever, and she's like, she's trying to show him some shit, and you can tell that I know that that chick is from Joy Luck Club.
Yeah, her name is Rosalind Chow.
Yeah,
If you've heard of her.
yeah, she was in that Joy
Yeah.
Luck Club, which I actually really like Joy Luck Club.
I really like Joy Luck Club too. Which I
Um,
actually first watched when I was in I think I first watched it when I was in high school for my English class.
okay.
And I really liked it.
I saw it when I was probably, I think when it first came out. I think that movie, didn't that movie come out like 94 or whatever?
Something like that.
I think I saw it right when it came out on VHS because my mom rented it. And
Wow.
yeah.
That's interesting.
So yeah, we watched it, and I was like, even at the time, I was like crying my ass off. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
I was like, this is fucking sad. This movie, you know? Yeah, sad movie. But Amy Tan, yeah, she's good. And so
Oh yeah, you
the
mean
author,
the
yeah,
author? Yeah,
yeah,
she was. Well, if you haven't read the book,
yeah, which I haven't. I've only seen the movie.
I read most of it because being in class actually.
I guess we did have to read it for school. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but I
Oh
don't
okay.
remember a lot of it. I just
Oh okay.
remember the movie.
I remember some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that chick is like trying to talk to him or whatever, and then some cop comes out of nowhere and like apprehends him basically.
Yeah, because she turned out that she was actually a sex worker.
Yeah, and he's
But
like,
he was not aware about it at all.
yeah, exactly. How's he gonna know, really? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then the cop just manhandles him, and then you can see him straight up grope his crotch or whatever, you know? And I don't know if that was planned. I don't think it was.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. But it's like, well, what would he be hiding under? It's like,
Yeah, I think the cop just wanted a free. The cop wanted to cop a feel.
yeah, like, well, like he was just taking advantage of him, really.
Yeah, yeah, and so he grabs there, and then you see Sean's face. Like I'm saying, the actor, like when he grabs it, you see Sean's face, and he's like, oh, he's like, whoa, like where'd that come from? You know, like he really wasn't expecting that. Um, and then we see him in the jail, and there's this black lady. Okay, her name is Loretta Devine. She's the actress, and she always plays a bitch like in every damn movie. She was a bitch in this. She's a bitch in like Boston Public.
Okay.
She was a bitch in Crash, the Paul Haggis movie or whatever. She's like always annoying, the lady.
So they just typecast her. Really.
Yeah, kind of. It's like the angry black woman, kind of. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, she's kind of typecast as that character, and so yeah, she's like giving him a hard time throughout this movie. You know. And then we see him at her school, and like the teachers and the principal are talking to him, and they show him a drawing that she did of him and her together, but she was like a lot bigger than him in the drawing. She's like a giant, and he's like a baby.
But he's just not a baby, but he's just like a really small man.
Yeah, yeah, and they kind of chew him out. Like they're like, you need to understand that they might take Lucy away. Like I don't get why they're so pissed off at him about it. You know, it's like it's not like there's much he can do. You know what I'm saying? And I always thought it was weird that she would draw this. You know, I just feel like a kid wouldn't do that. You know,
I personally wouldn't think so. It's like I don't understand whoever was working on the script. Where did they get that analogy that a child might start seeing themselves as larger when they have like an intellectually disabled parent?
yeah, I don't know if this came out in their research at all, but it just to me it seemed weird. Like I wouldn't think that they would do that.
No.
So when they're like chewing him out and saying that they might take Lucy away, then I like how Sam gives this like non sequitur. He's like, "Well, John wanted to try new things, and it wasn't Yoko's fault. Like you can hear it on the White Album. Like he starts talking about the Beatles, you know, and then the teachers are like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
they just look at him like really weird. Like it just doesn't make any sense to them at all.
Yeah, exactly. But it made sense to me.
Well, it made sense to me too. I got what he was trying to say.
Yeah, and then we see that they go to Bob's Big Boys because earlier, Lucy asked him if they could go, right?
Yeah, like she wanted to try something different because I guess going to IHOP every week was getting a bit too monotonous.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And so she's all excited, like, "Yay, we get to go to Bob's Big Boy." So then, but then they go there and they're ordering, and she's like, "Okay, what can I get you guys?" And then she orders something, and then she asks him, and he's like, "I want French pancakes or whatever." And
But then the waitress tells him like, oh, unfortunately we don't have those.
yeah, and then he's like, "What kind of place is this? Like, I want to go to IHOP." And he kind of makes a scene, and then you could hear like people start to like look over, like, what's going
Yeah,
on.
well, he starts really throwing a fit, and he's like, well, why don't you tell? He's like, why don't you tell Bob's Big Boy because the customer is always right, and then you just hear that echoing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I guess that was improvised. Like he improvised that. Why don't you ask Bob? Like,
And Lucy she starts really getting embarrassed by him at that
yeah,
point, like because when he first starts making a scene, she just kind of has this face like, oh my god, like here we go again.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And it's like for a kid to already start thinking that, that
Yeah,
shows that she's already pretty smart.
yeah,
And I remember that actress who plays the waitress. She was like on 90210 at the time, and she was like in some indie movies. I thought she might be a big actress, but it never really happened for
happened.
her. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like right there we see like Lucy's face in slow motion, and it kind of does the Wong Kar Wai effect there, and then it
Mm-hmm.
starts playing the "I'm Looking Through You"
Mm-hmm.
by the Wallflowers, which I thought was a pretty cool version
Yeah,
actually.
I like it too.
Yeah, I like the Wallflowers. I think their first album was pretty good. So then we see that they're having a Halloween party, and everyone's dressed up, and Sam comes in and he's dressed like a beetle, like he has the gray collarless suit and the wig, and then he's like jumping around playing like a
Yeah, he has like an
guitar.
inflated guitar,
Yeah,
like like one of those like those vinyl guitar toys, whatever you
yeah,
want to call it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then like Dakota,
Well, Lucy.
yeah, Lucy likes it at first, but then like all the kids start laughing at him or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, because he starts jumping and really getting a little too carried away, so they start laughing at, and you can tell that they're not laughing with him; they're actually making fun of him.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when she notices that, of course, she starts really getting ashamed of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then they're having like he's having a surprise party.
For
Yeah,
Lucy,
for
because
Lucy.
it's her birthday.
Yeah, and she's about to come home, and then that stupid Connor kid is there, and he's talking shit, and he said that.
Well, the thing is that Connor is about to ruin the surprise for her because like all the friends are gathered at their apartment when someone is about to walk her in, but
Mhm.
then he tells him like you should hide because she's about to get here and you don't want to ruin the surprise. And he's like, who cares? I'm sure that she already knows. Oh, and by the way, Lucy said that she's adopted, so you're not her real dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like we cut to Lucy's face, and she has like that beanie on, and she's
Yeah.
like looking like.
She's like, what is going on here?
Yeah, yeah, she's like frozen in the headlights. And then Sam is kind of like, what? Like he's kind of like sad about that. And then we see
See
that,
that social worker.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Loretta Devine is
Yeah.
there, and she tells him that Lucy shouldn't live with him. Um, and basically they take her away, and she's like under custody of the state at that point, I
Yeah.
guess. And they kind of start having mediation there with some lawyers, and we see one of the lawyers is played by Richard Schiff from what was that show he was on?
I know he was in The Good Doctor.
Yeah, he was on The Good Doctor, which I actually like that show.
I actually like.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he was also on the reason like he got casted for this movie is because he was on the show the West Wing. Yeah, he was
Oh,
on
okay.
that show. He was like some like presidential advisor guy, and
Mm-hmm.
but he plays a good asshole. I must admit, like when I see him, he just pisses me off. And so we see him there. He's just kind of sitting there in this scene, and we see the lady who's the judge. Like she was also like this bitchy judge in Eraser, in the movie Eraser with
Oh.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I love that movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, like she's also a bitchy judge in this, and I feel like she jumps the gun. She really is like, like she judges the situation way too quickly, and it's like, okay, like this guy's disabled, his daughter must be taken away from him. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like she didn't look at the complexities of it at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She was almost as bad as that judge who did that Brock Turner shit.
Oh, isn't that Richard Schiff's last name in the movie? Isn't that his character's last name in
Oh,
it?
Mr. Turner. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Part of the irony of it.
Yeah.
And so we see Sam with his homies again, and one of his homies, which we didn't mention earlier, is the dude from Rush Hour.
Well, he
So
has a really small part in it.
yeah, yeah, he has a small part in Rush Hour, but he has a bigger part in this.
Yeah.
What's his name? I keep forgetting his damn name.
Okay, we're looking it up on Wikipedia because it's the most reliable resource. If anyone can agree, I mean anyone can edit it, which can be a problem, but I think it's probably the one. It's probably the main source that a lot of people go to first, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, exactly. What was that guy's name?
And I knew it. Oh, isn't
Oh,
that him, Stanley
Stanley.
DeSantis? Yeah.
Stanley DeSantis, rest in peace. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was on a good run. He did Rush Hour 1, and then he did this, and then he did Entourage
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit. So yeah, he's there, and they're helping him look for a lawyer, basically, at this
Mm-hmm.
point. And
Yeah.
he goes to some random lawyer's office, and he's sitting there, and then we see Michelle Pfeiffer come in.
Oh, because she plays a lawyer.
Yeah, so Michelle Pfeiffer plays Rita, which is a nice little reference to the Beatles again. So
Mm-hmm.
Beatles have a song called Lovely Rita from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album.
Yeah. And one of our cats' name is actually Rita.
There you go. So full circle moment. So yeah. And he was actually supposed to go with a different lawyer. He was just waiting for that lawyer, but they weren't there. And then, she's kind of like, "Oh, would you like something to drink?" And he's like, "Is it free?" And she smiles and she's like, "Yeah, it's my treat." Like she's kind of like not really listening to him. Like he's trying to explain his story, and she's like, "Yeah, I get it." Like, so she's not really paying attention to what he's saying, and then like she's struggling with her son Willie. Like she talks to him on the phone, but he's like not really responding to her. Like she's like yearning to be closer with him, but he kind of like shrugs her off, and then she's yelling at her assistant to like get her some shit or whatever. Basically, like she tries to pass this case on to someone else. She kind of tells him like, "Oh, I have someone I could forward your case to." Basically, like she was kind of trying to pass the buck. And then we see him at Starbucks, and he wants to be a barista.
Well, he wants to get promoted to
Yeah,
barista.
yeah, so he can make more money.
I think he's just some sort of assistant at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like he's like one of those guys that they kind of just felt bad for, so they just hired to just hang around and do whatever he can, kind of.
Yeah.
We had some people like that at my work, kind of too. So, um, and his boss said, "Oh, he would think about it," um, but it's funny because Sam can see through that. Like he's like, "Oh, like that's a lie because it happened before." He said that he worked at a janitor at some theater, and then he wanted to be a ticket seller, but then someone else got that
Got the
job.
promotion. Yeah.
Yeah. So he shows up at Rita's office again, and she's having like a party or something like
It's
that.
like, yeah, you could tell that it's some sort of work-related gathering.
Yeah, like an office party. And someone asked her who that guy is or whatever. She's kind of like, oh, it's a case I'm helping out with, sort of pro bono thing. And then when she says that, everyone's like what? Like pro bono? Like what? And she's like, yeah, like I do pro bono, and nobody believes her there. People are like, sure, pro bono.
Well, at that point, like they just see her like as she's like pretty snobby, and
yeah.
So then I guess to turn things around, she just made that up on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Her definition of pro bono is listening to a U2 album. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's
whatever
legal.
legal. I mean, I don't know why this guy likes to bring up stuff that has nothing to do with it, just because there's a word that can be blended in, but it just doesn't make
Well, that's
sense.
the Briterion way,
Well, that's weird.
Anyways, so Sam has a cake for Lucy in this scene, and
well, a Baskin Robbins cake, no less.
Yeah, which my mom used to get me those all the time.
Yeah, my aunt used to buy them all the time until they just started getting crappier and they got more expensive over time.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, my mom always used to get mint chocolate chip with vanilla cake. I used to love that. And then some sort of Halloween crap, because my birthday is right before Halloween, like a little Halloween theme, like a bat on it or something. And so he goes to the center and we see him walking, and then he falls down and smashes the cake.
Well, because he was already about an hour late into the appointment.
Yeah, so it's just kind of funny. You see him kind of run, and then he just smashes the cake.
I feel really bad when that happened.
Yeah, it sucks, but what can you do? Yeah. So he talks with Lucy in this like coloring room. It's like something that they have, for kids when they talk with like counselors or psychiatrists and stuff like that. And then we can see that social workers are like looking through the mirror, like the two-way mirror.
They can't see them. Yeah. They can't see the social workers, but the social workers can't see them.
Yeah. But that's what's funny is that Lucy knows that they're there.
But I think he is pretty oblivious.
Yeah, he's oblivious to it, but she knows. Like, and then like you see Michelle Pfeiffer talking with
Rita.
Him. Yeah, Rita, and like I love the smile that she gives to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, she still was really pretty in this film. How old was she at this time?
She had to be maybe in her early 40s during this time.
Yeah. I mean, she still looked really good. And he
I mean, I think anyone can look really good at any age.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. So he rides with her in the car, and she's like hauling ass or whatever. Reminds me of driving with you sometimes.
Well, sometimes I just don't have patience for certain drivers. Yeah, sometimes I do feel like Rita Harrison when I'm on the road.
Yeah, flipping off tons of people.
Whoa. I think that's a little too much. But I do lose my patience with some drivers. Yeah.
And then so he's back home, and his friends are showing him how to use an answering machine or whatever. Like, remember those? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's been forever since I used an answering machine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny how that was the peak of technology at that time, and then now it's like so obsolete. I mean, we have them on our cell phones, but it's you used to have to buy a separate machine to record that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think by the time I started using it, the answering machine was already built into the phone.
Yeah. If you got a good cordless phone, it was already built in by that point. But before that, you had to have a separate machine that did that. And then we see Rita interviews his friends and records them, and she's just like smiling the whole time. She's like getting a kick out of these guys. And
yeah, well, she's trying to get them to testify, but they're not the most reliable guys.
Yeah.
I mean, even though they mean really well.
Yeah. And I guess so the DVD for this is also really good. Like I said, it's part of the New Line Cinema Film that they were doing at the time, so they put a lot of good features on it. The commentary is really good on it, and watching one of the featurettes, it was saying how the director Jessie Nelson, she really had them improvise a lot in the movie, and in this scene, they were doing a lot of improvisation, and like that Stanley DeSantis, he was kind of going on a good improv. He's like, why are you recording this? He was acting all paranoid or whatever. And he's like, who are you, really? It's pretty funny. He's pretty funny in this.
Yeah.
And so she tells him that he doesn't have any good witnesses, So then
yeah.
he goes to ask his neighbor, right?
Annie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she says, like, she'd probably make it worse for him somehow, like she wouldn't be a good witness either. And, she's agoraphobic. So
she has not left her apartment in years.
Yeah. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So he's in the court and his homies are there and he says, I have the best friends in the whole and they're like cheering him on like it's a sports thing. And then this psychiatrist lady takes the stand and she's the prosecution's witness. And Rita asks her, like, if her life experiences like have clouded her view of Sam, because she's saying, oh, Sam is not fit to be a parent to Lucy and stuff like that. And Rita asks, like, oh, like, like, do you think
you have like made huge mistakes?
Yeah, as a parent or whatever. And then like the lady kind of like starts getting emotional or whatever. Right?
Well, at first she's kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about, kind of. But then she asked her, like, what about when your son OD'd? Like, do you feel like you made huge mistakes there? And then you can see that she just starts breaking into tears.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, like that was pretty good research. Yeah. And then we see Rita questioning your girl, Mary Steenburgen, on the stand.
But what was exactly her role? I think that's what
I guess she was a lawyer too. Like she's like a colleague of hers, and she figured, let's put her on the stand because. So she asked her some questions and she said, oh, like, well, how was your mother? And she was like, oh, she was the greatest mother. She did this and this and this. Yeah. And she was like, what was your mom's IQ? And she's like 70. She had an IQ of 70.
So it was pretty low.
Yeah. But, she said she was a great mother and she was able to raise her into a lawyer,
and yeah.
Yeah. And,
we see Mr. Turner.
Yeah. Richard Schiff. He's a dick. He's,
Yeah, he just overall starts attacking. with no need to do that.
Yeah. He's very much on the offensive, he's being a real lawyer, and then
a horrible one.
Yeah. And then Lucy says to the social worker,
well, this is actually during their next arrangement.
Yeah. Like says the social worker to let her go to the park. And
of course he believes her.
Yeah. And so they go on a bus and we hear Strawberry Fields Forever, covered by Ben Harper. And I really like the scene. It's a nice montage. It has some nice cinematography. And I guess they get arrested because I think the social worker,
Well, he gets, more like, they're both apprehended and they're both taken back to, I think they're taken back to social services or something like that. Yeah.
And then
in the middle of the night.
Right, yeah. And then Rita shows up there with her son, Willie, and she's pissed. Like, she goes there and she's like chewing him out or whatever. And she's like, don't never do that again. Like, you're putting this whole thing in jeopardy. And and then we see Lucy take the stand in the trial, and Mr. Turner questions her, and he's like, "Oh, I heard you had a birthday recently." And she's like, "Everybody gets older. It's not a big deal." like, she really, um, she really downplays it, and Sam is in the other room, and he's like seeing her, being asked these questions, and like we see him kiss her face on the monitor, and he's like, she's so cute. And then the shock of the century, Annie shows up
to the court.
Yeah, and Sam's like, "Oh my god, Annie!" He's really happy and totally unexpected. And she goes on the stand, and Turner's grilling her, And
well, first, actually, Rita speaks to her, and it seems like it all goes well when Annie answers Rita's questions. But then Turner steps in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he asks her, what she does, and she's a piano teacher, and she says, like, "Oh, do you ever worry about, Lucy and Sam?" She's like, "Yeah, I worry. Like, I worry that she could be taken away from him, and Schiff is questioning her. Mr. Turner's questioning her, and asks, does Sam know how to add or whatever? And, she's kind of like, "Oh, I don't think that's relevant. Like, you don't need to add to be a good parent." Hey, Tom.
Hello. So here's an interesting appearance by our cat, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I told you this podcast was a lot about cats too, and that they make cameos, and
so he's just standing here, and he's just really overshadowing us right now.
Yeah, it's a cat intermission.
Yes. So it's just gonna be interesting. Whoa. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
We're back.
So where was I? Yeah. And,
So we see that Turner is starting to attack Annie.
Yeah, like and then like Hutchison, what's his name in the movie?
He has an interesting name, which I don't recall.
Oh, Ifty.
That's true. I forget. Yeah, I forgot it too. But Ifty.
Yeah, he chimes in randomly, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Turner lost his toupee," or he says that.
And he just puts him on blast, and you can see that Turner is really
he's pissed about it. Yeah. And then Turner brings up the fact that Annie's agoraphobic, and he says, "Oh, don't you think that staying inside for 28 years has warped your judgment?" And then he brings up her father, and she just breaks down, like she just starts crying, right?
Yeah.
And Sam just out of nowhere is like, "Objection!" He's like, "Annie's father was a meanie," like Blue Meanie, like in.
Oh, I think that was intentional. Yeah, to mention Blue Meanie.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then they go back home. Rita drives them all back home. Annie, Sam, and
they're waiting for Annie to get out of the car, but she's too freaked out to leave.
Yeah, like she's like, "Okay, you can go," and she's like, "Ah, I'm not ready." She just screams, and they're like, "Okay," and they just have to wait the whole time, and then it's like dark.
Nighttime until they finally make their way inside.
And then she's like, "Now I'm ready." And then Rita's trying to make a call, and she's trying to use her like old school Siri on her.
Well, whatever it was called before on the old phones.
Yeah.
Like if you ever had a flip phone.
Yeah. And who was she trying to call? Her husband?
She was trying to call home because she's like home, and it's like calling office. She's like home, calling office, home. God damn it!
Yeah, exactly. It's very funny. And then we
Yeah.
hear Golden Slumbers piano kick in, and that cover is by Ben Folds. Chris is a big Ben Folds guy.
I'm not surprised somehow.
I am not a big Ben Folds guy.
Neither am I, but to each their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's seen him live back in the day. Back,
Well, he's gone to a lot of random events.
he has. He really has. He's seen Angie Stone. He's seen Ben Folds. He's seen strange things in his life and times. But I really like the camera work and the look here during this Golden Slumbers part. I guess the DP was Elliot Davis, and I looked him up. He's actually done quite a lot of movies. Actually, I forgot to list them here, but he's done some good stuff. And then Rita is at home, or like we can see that she likes eating marshmallows. Like that's like her snack of choice.
Yeah, especially when you can tell that when she's going through a stressful situation.
Yeah,
it's like she likes to hide in the kitchen and binge on marshmallows.
Yeah, it's marshmallow o'clock for her. I'm not a big marshmallow guy.
I actually like them.
I know you love them.
If you ever want to surprise me with anything, marshmallows can be one thing.
I think you got some like pink marshmallows before. They were like strawberry marshmallows or something like that. Those are pretty damn good. I like those.
Ooh, I don't think I remember that.
Really? I remember. I like the flavored ones. I don't like the straight up ones, but the ones with a little flavor, I kind of like those.
I'd have to look for those again sometime.
Okay, we should do s'mores with those. That would be kind of cool.
But I do like. Well, I like marshmallows. Marshmallows with coconut. If you've never had them. Well, and this guy likes neither of those two.
I don't like coconut either. You like Peeps, right?
I do like Peeps, but I'm trying to watch what I eat now, so I actually haven't had any in a while. And I know that right now they're everywhere because Easter is approaching.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta peep the peeps. So then we see that Sam does get promoted to barista at Starbucks, right?
Yeah, which it only happened because his manager actually didn't get mentioned earlier, but his manager did go and testify for him. And when he was asked about his work abilities, he's like, oh, in fact, he said he's getting a promotion next week. And that's when Sam gets really happy. He's like, yay! And so then, fast forward to now Sam is, he's working on his first day as a barista.
Yeah. And they're happy for him, in that moment. But then we see him struggling with it.
He's struggling to keep up with the number of customers and just like the whole fast-paced, thing that involves the position.
He's fucking up drinks left and right. It's overwhelming to him. And then he runs out of Starbucks with his apron on.
Because the same day that he started his first day as the day he started as a barista, he also had his next court date. So
and then he gets to the court with like his apron, and he's all wet with all these coffee stains.
Yeah, because he actually put one of the drinks in the blender and he forgot to put the lid on, and of course it just got everywhere.
Yeah, and he gets there and Rita's like, what the hell happened? Because she gave him a suit. She gave him one of her husband's suits.
Yeah.
Because she thought he would look nice, and then he shows up, he's all fucked up. And she's like, what the fuck? So then he takes a stand, and then Rita questions him and asks for his plan, and asks him if it would be better if Lucy was with a foster family. And then he brings up how, like, this is another thing where he brings up, like, he'll be asked something, and then he brings up a Beatle thing.
A Beatle, it's like a Beatle reference. It's more like a Beatle fact. Like, yeah.
But it ties into kind of what they're trying to ask him or say. So then he brings up how Paul McCartney wrote Michelle, and then he wrote the first part, but he was having trouble, after that. And then John wrote the part that I love you, I love you, I love you. And he said that made the song better. their collaboration, and Rita seemed happy with that, and she's like, no more questions. She walks away, and then Turner's ass gets up there, and he asks him like, oh, like, didn't you have foster parents? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, did you ever get hit by them? And he's like, yeah, they would hit me, sometimes. Um, and then he's like, oh, did they hit you like you hit that kid at the party or whatever, Connor? And when he says that, Rita's like, objection, he did not hit him. And then he's like, strong armed him,
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's trying to be manipulative. Um, but I like how he's on the stand. Like I love the editing here. Like we see,
Yeah, like all the like the choppiness and
yeah,
the editing.
like we see
Yeah, I
Sam on the stand and he's thinking, and then it cuts back to when he's like on the swing with Lucy from the beginning. And yeah, really good editing. So Richard Chu was the editor, and I think he's probably one of the best editors of all time. Honestly, he did Star Wars, the original Star Wars. He did The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola movie with Gene Hackman, who just recently passed. Rest in peace. He did Risky
yeah.
Business, which is great. I just showed you that not long ago, right?
Yeah,
For
great
the
movie
first
by the
time.
way.
He did Real Genius, which is a great 80s movie. He did Revenge of the Nerds too. He did Singles, the Cameron Crowe movie, which became Friends, believe it or not. He did Mi Vida Loca, um, which I'm kind of surprised that isn't on Criterion. I thought they'd want to throw that in for like diversity into Criterion. Um, he did Waiting to Exhale. He worked with Forrest Whitaker a lot, and then he also worked on One Floor of the Cuckoo's Nest. He wasn't the main editor of that, but he was like, I guess, an assistant editor. And then he worked on the Woodstock documentary, which has some of the best editing ever. So like Martin Scorsese, he was actually one of the editors of that Woodstock documentary too. So if you've never seen that Woodstock documentary, look for it, because if you see the editing, it's like off the chain. And so Richard Chew, he's pretty damn good. So they end up taking Lucy away after this, and they're kind of hugging, but they pull her away, and I like that it's like muted, like you don't hear their conversation, you don't hear her crying, it's like silent during that part. Like I love the decision to put that there, and you just see them crying and being separated. I really like that part. What do you think of that?
Well, it's very heartbreaking, honestly.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is.
I mean, it's just like, every time I watch this movie, I don't like that part, but I guess it's just part of what happens, really. That's just the
Yeah,
part of the storm.
yeah, the content was sad. I like it from a technical sense is what
Yeah,
I'm trying to say.
of course. No, I think that was a really good portrayal of it.
Yeah, and then
It just hurts to watch it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then we see Sam. He's like walking in this tunnel in LA. Like, in LA, how they have like all those random tunnels and stuff like that. It's a cool shot, I think. And then we see Rita lying down with her son. And like, it's like she doesn't take it for granted in that one point. Like she just saw him get separated from Lucy. So it's like, oh, like she's like, oh, I have a son, and I don't want to lose him. So she like, it's like in that one moment she stopped being a workaholic, and she was like, oh, I need to like really be with my son, you know what I'm saying? And then we see Sam at home, and yeah, like I said, this is where you see like Dr. Seuss books in the background. There's like a lot of them, so it's like I guess there is a big Dr. Seuss influence. And he's like depressed at that point. It's like his lowest point pretty much. And we see him walking up this like
Well,
hill.
yeah. Well, it cuts to the next.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
cuts to, and then we hear you got to hide your love away. So, and he's like walking up these like kind of hilly
Yeah.
area, and that version is by Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam fame. And the where he's walking, it almost looks like he's walking in Eastlake or something. Like,
For those who are not familiar in Eastlake, that is a suburb, which is in East Chula Vista. If you're not familiar with that area, yeah, we both came out of there, and it's
crap.
Yeah, it's just really boring, and it's just really out in the middle of nowhere. If you want to get anywhere, it takes you quite a while to get out of that area.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't miss living there, honestly.
No, me neither. And if you look up, like, I guess it was 2011 or something, Time Magazine, most boringest city in America, Chula Vista, California. Google that, please.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But they
so
should have just included East Chula Vista because at least West Chula Vista has more going on for
yeah,
it.
it's better now. I think they're probably referring to like East Lake, but wanted to just generalize, I guess. But yeah, like so it looks like he's in East Lake. There's all these like cookie cutter McMansions,
Hmm.
they all look the same. Hey Tom again. And so we see him walking through there while you hear this hey, you got to hide and then when they were putting the soundtrack together, they're trying to get different artists to do the covers, and they were kind of like they didn't have anyone at the last minute for this scene, and I guess Eddie Vedder became available, and they're like, "Oh, can you do? You got to hide your love away?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so like they went to the studio. He was with the producer, and he didn't have a lot of time, and so the producer was like, "Hey, you want to rehearse this?" And he's like, "No, dude, I've been doing this song since sixth grade camp. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been singing this forever." And so he just like knocked it out in one take. And the whole Beatles thing, I guess, as far as the choice to use all Beatles songs, the director and the writers and stuff, they did a lot of research doing this film, and when they went to interview a lot of disabled people, they would ask them like, "Oh, who are your favorite? What's your favorite musicians? Like, what are your favorite bands?" And a lot of them said Beatles. Like a lot of them were like, "Oh, Beatles." Oh, they all said Beatles, and they're like, "Okay, well, I guess
Hmm.
since they love the Beatles, we should do an all Beatles soundtrack." That was like that's why they put that together. I kind of have my own theories on that, which I'll get to a bit later. But then we see Lucy with her foster parent, played by Laura Dern, and her name is Randy. I guess her real name's
Is
Miranda.
Miranda?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they call her Randy for
Hmm.
short. And seeing Laura Dern is like I couldn't think of a better foster parent than her. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's perfect for Lucy, but she thinks that Lucy has been hurt by Sam, and she thinks that Lucy would be better off with her,
Mm.
not with her actual dad. And I just feel like they were way too harsh on Sam in this. Like nobody has any empathy for him at all. Like,
No.
like they don't care that he's disabled. You know what I'm saying? They just
Yeah, especially her. I feel that I thought she would be more empathetic considering that,
yeah.
she did live with him for the first 7 years of her life, and it's like nobody cared at that point.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
she seems nice and, more educated than a lot of these other people, but she still doesn't give a shit, you know? Um, and so we see Sam at home and he's like depressed, and Rita knocks on the door and she's pissed off that he didn't show up for this meeting with this counselor and stuff like that. And she's pissed, so she just like not kicks down the door or whatever, and she opens it up, and he built like some origami wall or something like that.
Well, it's kind of like a very. I don't
Yeah,
think he wants. I don't think he's ready to face the world after all he's been through.
yeah. And so she comes in, she's like, "What the hell is this?" And she kind of looks through, and she sees him through the wall. She tells him that she wants to keep fighting for him, but he's like ready to give up. He
Well,
doesn't.
he's practically given up at that point.
Yeah, basically. And he says he doesn't want to work at Starbucks anymore.
But then she reminds him that.
Yeah, like she tells him that the court favors reunification, but you have to fight for her. That's what she tells him. And he's just like, "Oh no, like you don't know because you were born perfect." And she kind of scoffs at that, and she says, "People like me feel lost and little and ugly, and people like me have husbands screwing someone more perfect than me." That's what she says, and I like her acting a lot here. I like her crying. I think it's really good. And it's funny. She tells him, "I know you deserve better, but get in the fucking car." It's a funny little line. Supposedly there was supposed to be a sex scene in this movie. I don't know if you knew that, but
I knew beforehand, and I'm glad it didn't happen because it would have made it way too weird
yeah,
and just all in all inappropriate considering the kind of relationship they had.
yeah. I mean, I don't think it would have fit. It would have been quite strange. But I think it was probably supposed to be in this section because they like hug or whatever, and I feel like it's the only place that would make sense in the movie for that to be in. Luckily, they did. I mean, I don't know if they shot it and cut it out, or they cut it out in the script stage. I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure either, but I'm like I said, I'm
Yeah,
glad it didn't
yeah,
happen.
yeah, exactly. And then we see him. He's like dog walking. He's walking like 50 dogs that
Well,
he's
yeah, well
holding.
he's pet sitting, so
Yeah, yeah, and he bumps into Lucy and Randy, and she she tells him like, oh, like you're early or whatever, and she says, oh, you haven't come in a while, so like we thought that you might never come back, and she tells him like, hey, Lucy's already like built a new life without you, and he's like, oh, like I just needed to get my shit together, basically. And
mm-hmm.
she's like, whose dogs are these? And he's like, oh, it's supplemental income or whatever. So, like, and then Lucy runs out and she's like pissed off and starts hitting him, and she's
She's
like,
like, you never even came. It's like, what happened to you? Like, she's
yeah,
really upset at him for it.
yeah. She thinks he abandoned her, and he's like, no, I just needed to get a new job and stuff like that. And we see Sam and Rita eating at IHOP, and we think they're alone, but then we see like all the friends are there now
Yeah,
too.
yeah, there comes that sudden surprise.
Yeah, exactly. And she's proposing to Sam like, oh, maybe Randy can be the official parent, and we could get you really good visitation rights, like. But then he's like, oh, you're giving up now. Like, you don't think that we can win this or whatever. And she's like, no, I just she's like trying to be realistic, I guess. She
Mm-hmm.
thinks that might be the best move. But then, so Sam moves closer to Lucy, and
Yeah, he bumps into her and Randy,
yeah,
and we see that she now is a Girl Scout. So you see her with the little wagon selling cookies.
yeah, and they like nerd out on Beatles trivia.
Yeah,
It's like, I want to buy some cookies from her,
yeah. But it's too bad that season is over because they left me with some cravings.
Yeah.
If you didn't see that this year, they had the Toastiers. That's officially my new favorite
Yeah,
Girl
those are
Scout
hella
cookie.
good. Yeah, these new cookies.
Yeah, and the lemonades are also
Yeah,
really
those
good.
are hella fucking good. If you can eat those, go for it.
Yeah,
It's too bad my niece isn't doing that anymore.
yeah. Well, I mean, I knew other people whose daughters were selling them, but I feel like that ends way too soon.
Yeah, it's a very short season. But I'm like, cookies and Beatles trivia, that's like a perfect Sunday for me. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and then and Randy, she's pissed that he moved closer. She's like, you're closer now? What the
Yeah,
hell?
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. She's like, we need to give her consistency or whatever. And she's pissed. But then Lucy has this plan where she like continuously leaves in the middle of the night. She leaves Randy's house and goes to his apartment. And he sees her, and she's like, "Oh, you could have got hurted."
Mm-hmm.
So,
But then he takes her back to Randy's house.
yeah, he takes her back, and she's like pissed off, and she's like, "What the hell happened?" And then he's like, "Oh, if you tell her 2 stories and give her IHOP
Half,
corn cake."
yeah, well, half an IHOP corn.
Yeah.
It's like he called it half an IHOP corn muffin.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
She'll go back to sleep or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. IHOP. It's not very good at this point.
But they made it look really good in the movie. Though.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked pretty good. Maybe it was better then. That was already a while ago.
Well, I know that it got a lot of buzz back in the day, and I do remember it being better. But then with time, it's like it just went downhill.
It's gone to crap.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So then we see he starts working at Target at Food Avenue, which is where I had to work sometimes when I worked at Target. I had to work Food Avenue.
Yeah. Well, it, it's way different now because I don't even think they still sell the Pizza Hut
No,
items, do
they
they?
got rid of that a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the irony is now Starbucks is at Target. You know what I'm saying? It's a full circle.
Mm,
Say he was working at Starbucks, he's like, okay, well, you want a new job? Here's Starbucks at Target. You know, so
yeah, which
he
I
would,
used to really like Target, but now I'm definitely not going to either of those places.
yeah, it's crap.
So, can
Horrible guest service.
and if you can, please boycott both of them.
Yeah, yeah, you should. Yeah, but when I worked Food Ave, they never had any food ready. You know what I'm saying? Like the pretzels would be frozen, soup would be frozen,
Gross.
pizzas weren't proofed, so no, like,
Sounds just like Panera. I worked there for a few months, and if you know how they made it seem that everything was fresh and clean, no, it's not. The soups come in frozen from the main factory.
yeah,
The soups and the macaroni and cheese. So, spoiler, just eat somewhere else.
that's the spoiler. Yeah, the only thing they had ready were the breadsticks. Like when I was there, it's everyone's like, "Can I get a pizza?" Like breadsticks. Like, "Can I get a soup?" Breadsticks. "Can I get a pretzel?" Breadsticks. "Can I get some breadsticks?" There's no
That
breadsticks.
sounds horrible.
Sold out of breadsticks. Yeah, and so Rita goes to his place with her son Willie, and then she gives him another old suit that her husband had, and I like Michelle Pfeiffer's acting here. I like how she looks away at her son and she's like, Sam, I worry. I worry sometimes. I worry that I've gotten more out of this relationship than you. And it's a nice little touching moment. And he mentions George Harrison. What does he say there about him? Do you remember?
I actually don't remember.
Well, he says something about him, and then she says, George was always my favorite Beatle. You know, it's just.
Well, and she does share a last name with
Yeah,
him, so.
exactly. I guess that's probably why. And then Randy shows up at Sam's randomly carrying Lucy, who's asleep. And I guess in that moment, she realizes that she should be with Sam. You
Yeah.
know, she's like, and she even apologizes to him. She's like, oh, like, I realize that, it's best for her to be with her dad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, the foster parents, they decide not to adopt her. And
But they they still are somewhat involved in her life.
yeah, yeah. And Randy assures him that she will tell the judge that he's the best parent for Lucy. So, in turn, Sam asks Randy if she will help him raise Lucy because he feels she needs a mother figure, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like, yeah, I'm sure she has Rita in her life too now, you know what I'm saying? Like, as a
Yeah.
mother figure. And then we hear the little beginning riff of Two of Us, which is the same cover from Amy Mann and Michael Penn. And then the final scene, it shows them at a soccer game, and Sam is the referee, and he's running around with the kids, and Lucy is kicking the ball and playing, and in her little soccer uniform, and Randy and her family are there cheering her on, and Rita is there cheering her on with Willie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a nice little ending. It's like it's kind of sad, but and I think the
Mm-hmm.
music also helps it, makes it feel kind of sad.
Yeah, of course.
Just those lyrics like you and I have memories longer than the road that stretches out ahead. It just
Yeah.
it fits perfectly. And then yeah, and then that's the end of the film, and then we see the end credits, and it's like these paintings that we see earlier in the movie, and it's set to Mother Nature's Son, sang by Sheryl Crow, which
Yeah.
you're not a big Sheryl Crow fan, right?
No, but I'm okay if you're a fan.
But it's weird this cover she does because it's like she used auto tune a little bit on this. I could tell, I could hear it a little bit in her
Hmm.
voice. So I guess she was like hanging out with T-Pain a lot of the time or something like
That's
that,
interesting.
using the auto tune. So on Rotten Tomatoes, I guess this has an approval rating of 35% based on reviews from 145 critics with an average rating of 4.7 out of 10. Not very good, as I said before when it first came out. It says the site's consensus reads, not only does the manipulative I Am Sam oversimplify a complex issue, it drowns it in treacle. Treacle, I guess. This must have been a British person who wrote that. Like Black Treacle, the song by Arctic Monkeys. Americans listening to that is like, what the hell's treacle?
Interesting.
And on Metacritic, the film has a score of 28 of 100 based on 33 reviews, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. So it gets pretty crappy reviews from critics, but audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film a grade A on the scale of A to F.
Yeah.
So the audience likes it.
Yeah, I think the audience will like, you know, I think as long as it's a good movie, but I think the critics are just tired. Like, I think when an actor is portraying someone who has like some sort of challenge, especially when it involves like a, like either like a intellectual disability, I think they just see it as a gimmick and they're like, no. They're
Right.
just like, no, they're not impressed.
I guess not. I saw that it's interesting that it says the film won the inaugural Stanley Kramer Award from the Producers Guild of America and was nominated for the Humanitas Prize and the Japan Academy Prize for Outstanding Foreign Language Film. That's kind of interesting. And I guess Jessie Nelson did a lot of movies. She did Fred Claus, believe it or not. She did
Really?
Story of Us. She did Corina. She did Stepmom, I guess. I didn't realize she did that. She did Because I Said So. So she did more movies than I thought. I mean, her style, especially in this film, it kind of gives me a little Cholodenko vibe, a little bit.
I can't see what you're saying.
Something with the LA ambiance, you know. I guess she's Jewish too, so maybe that's part of it.
Oh, maybe.
And so it's funny. So after we saw that movie in Mr. Dr. Imami's class in 2004, I walked away and I was like, I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty good. And then I remember my friend in the class, he asked me, like, at the time, he asked me, oh, why all Beatles songs, though? And this is, before I did any research on it. This is just off the cuff. And this was my answer at 19 years old. I told him, I said, because if you listen to the Beatles, you don't need to know anything else. You know what I'm saying? The Beatles will teach you how to do everything. They'll teach you how to live, how to love, how to learn. Like it's all there in the music. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was my interpretation as to why they chose Beatles songs for this film. And I think it worked out perfectly. So that's I Am Sam. Do you have any other last words on this?
Well, I would say that, if you know anybody who um, has some sort of struggle, and if people think otherwise, like, oh, they're not fit to be a parent, but think of, I, I feel that I've seen a lot of people who are, let's just say, more able bodied or able minded. And I feel that I could say a lot of people should not be parents. But I feel that Sam was doing a really good job as a dad. So
Yeah.
I think you should look beyond of people's abilities, or, whatever they can do. I feel like if they're really there and they can provide positive and nurturing environment for their children, I think that's really all that matters.
Yeah. Well said, Aileen. Thanks for joining me to talk about I Am Sam, and thanks for listening to Briterion Bollection. We'll catch you next time.
Okay.
Later.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay.